sometimes when I hit record, it gets weird. How's life? How's everything going?
Basically really well.
Good. I like it. So you're still up in the Boston area, correct?
Yes,
Okay, excellent. Well, hey man, thank you for taking a minute out. It's great to reconvene.
I agree. I haven't seen, last time it was by telephone. This is nicer.
It's That's the great thing about going through this whole pandemic era is that now I get to see everybody in living color. I kind of feel like there's just an added element. It's great to see everybody in living color. So it's great to see you. I love Among Friends. You've been busy lately, so it's great to catch up and get into it.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, you bet. So let's get into the album. I know that this was an album that was pre-recorded like 30 years ago and it's coming out. Talk to me a little bit about why you released it now and kind of the whole vision of this album.
Okay, well, it's the second album that I released this year. I don't
Yeah.
know, did you get a chance to listen to the other one
I
too?
did. I did.
Yeah,
And that's why I was
okay.
saying you've been busy.
Yeah, so the first album was with my current band. And I've recorded a few albums already with the same two guys. And so that was my current project. But uh, after many, many years of being with a particular record label, I was on the Whaling City Sound record label for basically 20 years.
Yeah.
And, the record business isn't a great business. And the guy that owns the label is more than a business partner. He was really supportive to me professionally, but, he's a friend as well. But, he's basically run out of, I mean, he was very supportive for me financially, and he put out, I don't know how many records. I can't even remember how many records I released on his label. And but he's at the point now where the finances are difficult for him. So he was willing to release my new record, but I he was asking for a lot of money from me. And so I decided after all of those years to just shop around to see if I could find something different. And it seems to me that these days the music business, I mean, I'd had a lot of success on radio, for example, Jazz Week charts on all my previous records because the one thing my previous label did was they really promoted heavily to radio. And I've had a lot of success on radio. So I knew that people would play my music on the radio, but it's never really translated to furthering my career particularly. People either don't listen that much. I mean, you have a radio show, so you probably know people don't. It's not like it used to be.
Yeah.
People don't listen to radio and then rush off to buy albums,
Yeah.
which is the problem for my record label, and it was the problem for me. I had a lot of. I never had a number one record, but I had a number of number twos and records in the top 10 for months, and never translated into either gigs or money for me. So I just decided to do something different, and streaming is where it's at now. Not that anybody makes any money from it, but I found a label that emphasizes streaming and promotes heavily on streaming and gets songs on playlists. So I decided to do something different this time, and that label is Tiger Turn Records.
Yeah.
And but Tiger Turn doesn't manufacture hard the hard copies, the CD. So in a sense, I had to become, I mean, as long as I was spending money, I could have spent money on my old label, the same amount of money that I spent to release this myself with the distribution by Tiger Turn. I just decided to do something different. So I released the first one in January, Next Gen, which is a guitar-based drums trio. But when I contacted Tiger Turn about that record, he was also interested in this other recording, Among Friends, which is the new release that I have right now. And I recorded it years ago, and I recorded it mostly in my living room, a little bit in one of my in my office at Berkeley after hours. But and I've always loved the music, and it was always dear to my heart because they were the people that I collaborated with, the cellist Chris White and the vocalist Faye Whitaker were people that I played a lot of gigs with at different stages of my early career. And Chris doesn't even live in the Boston area. He lives in Ithaca, New York. I brought him into town to do this. And Faye is a person that I did a lot of gigs with, mostly duet gigs, but also some band gigs with her early in my career. And I brought them together. We recorded the music with no previous rehearsal. I don't know. We figured out our arrangements on the spot. And I played a lot with Faye. The duets I did with her were things that we had worked on over many years playing gigs together. And Chris, I hadn't seen for a long time because I knew him from Vermont before I moved to Boston. And when I was first learning to play jazz guitar, and he's a rare cellist because he's not just a wonderful classical cellist, but he's very flexible. He listens and he has an affinity for all styles of music, and he did a wonderful job playing popular music kind of cello, not just classical cello. So at any rate, I gathered these two people into my living room and we recorded the music in an afternoon. And then for some reason, I'm not really ever sure why, I was on this record label, Whaling City Sound, for many years with my friend Neil Weiss as the owner. But he never was interested in listening to this. I offered it to him a few times, and he was only interested in the new music I was recording.
Hmm.
So it just stayed in the can for years. And when Tiger turned, when I started my affiliation with Tiger Turn, that person, Kabir Segal, was interested in it and liked it, so he was willing to release it as well. So finally, after all these years, it's seen the light of day, and I'm really happy because I've always thought that it was a wonderful recording. And the nice thing about music is that it doesn't it age. It's like, I guess it's a little bit like fine wine. It ages well. It doesn't go bad if you don't, it doesn't have an expiration date on it. So I'm really glad that it finally sees the light of day.
Well, it's interesting because sometimes I'll take a look at like Legends and there's all these re-releases like Monk Remastered and Miles in France and all of these things. And there's a level of nostalgia that goes into it. So with this release done so long ago, do you get into this nostalgic land of thinking, wow, where I was at then versus where I'm at now? I mean, even though it aged well and it's great to get it out, do you start going into that place of where you are on an evolutionary scale as a musician?
That's a really great question, Joe. Thank you for asking that. I mean, to me, that's the most interesting, personally, as an artist, that's the most interesting aspect to this recording. I mean, I've always liked it, and I'm really glad it's out now, finally. And the guy who mastered it did a wonderful job. So it sounds, I mean, first of all, it's a miracle because I recorded it myself. I am one of the least technical people you might know.
Yeah.
I mean, I know how to use a computer, but I'm not techie and I'm not an engineer, and I have no idea how. I borrowed some really not not even professional level recording equipment from Berkeley. Borrowed a DAT tape recorder and a really bad cheap mixer and some microphones from Berkeley, and I recorded this myself. And once it got mastered by the guy that mastered it, it sounds like a studio recording. So that's number one. It's like a miracle that it sounds as good as it does,
Yeah.
that I captured it. But to the essence of your question, really, it's amazing to me because, I mean, I'm a relentless practicer and I know I'm a far more experienced and skillful musician than I was when I recorded it. But it sounds just like I sound now. I can't believe it. It doesn't sound like a person who still had a lot to learn playing the guitar. And my colleagues did a wonderful job. The singer, Faye Whitaker, she has a distinctive voice,
Yeah.
and some people may not like it. Some people, I mean, everybody likes or doesn't like various musicians. And I think singers suffer from that maybe more than most because we're all people and this is a person expressing themselves in the most direct way possible, not through another instrument, but through singing
Yeah.
with their own voice. So I love her voice. She's an a big big. I mean, she's got a big voice, African American, deep voice, and but she sings in tune. She has great phrasing, and her voice is to me very beautiful. And I have encountered people who don't like her voice, but I mean, I maybe I shouldn't even be talking about this in this interview. But the fact is, whether people whether people like some people love her voice and some people don't. I don't
Sure.
know.
No, I get that. It's a very interesting you mentioned that because I do think about certain musicians like I'm a big fan of Moby, who does a lot of soundtrack work, and he's very big in the electronic world. He gets very unique singers that come in, and I think it can resonate with people or it can detract them. But that you're totally right, and it's funny because a lot of horn play, especially, mimics the human voice, and that's the funny thing about jazz is that it kind of plays into the same ilk. So let me ask you this: the one point that you brought up that's very interesting that I don't think a lot of casual fans think about is the business and the economics behind jazz. And you bring up the fact that this is streaming, but there's also something kind of romantic and cemented about having a calling card like a CD. Because at the end of the day, the musicians really make money off going out and having people see them live. They make money at the door and people want to buy CDs. Isn't that the real bread and butter of a lot of jazz musicians these days that will make real
Yeah,
money? Yeah.
especially the ones that get a chance to play a lot
Yeah.
and tour. You know, whenever I do tour, which isn't that often, but that's the only time I really sell CDs.
Yeah.
Or, I have a big gig coming up in Boston in September, and assuming that I can get an audience to show up at the big jazz club here, which is always a burden. Uh, when I travel, I don't have that problem because if you're coming from somewhere else, people want to see you because you're not there. When you live in Boston and you're playing in Boston, it's not as big a deal.
Yeah.
But at any rate, that's the only time I ever sell CDs. I don't sell CDs. I mean, once in a while, someone buys one off my website. But and this is the problem that Neil Weiss, the owner of the record label I was on for all those years, people don't really buy CDs,
Yeah.
and he gets all his thrills from whether or not he has radio success. But that explains why he's slowing down putting out people's music because it doesn't ever bring him back anywhere near the money that he puts into it.
Yeah.
So, at some point, even somebody as passionate and crazy about doing what he's doing as Neil Weiss realizes I can't just keep dropping money into something that I don't get back.
Yeah.
So that's why, if you want to release something on his label now, you have to help him pay for it because anyway, I'm a little bit nervous about what I said about Faye's voice. I think she has a wonderful voice. She's a great singer. She sings in tune. She has great phrasing, and the choice of songs really fit her. They were the songs she wanted to sing. So, and Chris, but just I'll go back to what you were talking about, the business of the music, of course. But I just want to say about Chris is that he's just such a wonderful cellist. The thing about playing duets with a cello, or I mean, it was a trio, but instrumentals were just two instruments, myself on guitar and him on cello, is that the cello is like having two people to play with at once because
Yeah.
he's playing bass parts, not quite as deep as an acoustic bass or a bass guitar would be, but still plenty bass register kind of support. And he plays really wonderful bass lines and accompaniments. And also, when he picks up his bow to take solos, it's like having a violinist or a violist to play with. It's two instruments in one for the guitarist in a duet situation.
Yeah.
And he's very, very flexible. He plays great and he listens and he interacts. So it was just really a pleasure always to play with him. And I think the music represents all three of us really collaborating in a nice way, which is why I called it Among Friends. But the business is funny. I don't know if I'm going to make a cent from this recording. I'll probably never even get the money back I put into it, which is almost always the case. Uh, there's been a few of my records that I managed to pay for without it costing me a lot of money, but mostly not. And so it's you making an investment in your career, and that's what making a CD is. But you're right, it's the calling chord, which is why even though I have really great digital distribution and Beer is getting my some individual songs on playlists, which is a really wonderful thing for. I mean, we'll see if I how much money I make from that. Probably not a pittance because streaming doesn't pay very well for
Yeah.
musicians, as we probably all know.
Y-
But uh, but I needed some CDs, so
Yeah.
I actually purchased uh, discs so I have some to sell and offer people, and that's what allowed me to do the promotion that I've done. And I chose to promote them. I actually didn't promote Next Gen to radio because, it was my first. I have two albums now that I've done with Tiger Turn and myself in collaboration. And the first one was Next Gen, which is the guitar trio one. It probably may have been even more successful because of its context, than the second one. But I just thought after having done Next Gen and the music on it is great, and I know people would have played it on the radio, but I just didn't promote it to radio. And but among friends, I decided to go and promote both ways, both to print and to radio. The person who does my publicity, who's I guess the person that hooked us up this time. I mean, you and I have a small relationship from the past anyway, but
Yeah.
uh, Holly Cooper
Yeah.
does that, and she's gotten me a lot of reviews so far, especially for the first album. But maybe the reviews are still coming to come in for among friends. I'm hoping that they do.
Yeah. You know, the one thing about being nostalgic about this being a recording that comes from the archives is that I think about your lineage from Kansas City, and I was just thinking while we were talking about such a great history of guitar players that have come out of Kansas City, from
Oh
Pat
yeah.
Metheny, Steve Cardenas, and it seems like there's kind of a revolving door, and they'll come back. Like Pat Metheny came back a few years ago; it had been a long time. Steve comes in every once in a while. Do you have any plans on coming through Kansas City?
Well, I come back to visit family. I still have family in the area, and I did do a few years back. I guess it was right before COVID. I came in and I played at I think is it the Black Lady? Is that the name of the
Oh, the
place?
Black Dolphin.
The Black Dolphin, yeah. I was part of the Mark Edelman's syndicated show,
Yeah, yeah,
which I'm trying to remember the name of. What was that? He had a syndicated
yeah.
show,
I know what you're talking
yeah,
about. Yeah.
and the singer David Bassie, Dave
Yep.
Bassie, was part of that.
Yeah.
And, so we performed there, and I would be happy to come back. It's just I just haven't arranged it.
Yeah.
I don't do that much touring. I have a place to stay there if I came back,
Yeah.
and I'm sure I could arrange it. But it was even when we did that thing. We talked to the person that owns that club, and what's the other club? He owns two clubs there, or at
John
least
Scott. Yeah. The Green Lady
yeah.
Lounge and Black Dolphin.
And I was kind of shocked by how little they pay, but I mean, it's not even about the money, really. It's just
Yeah.
that it seemed like to ask people to play for that kind of money but I guess that's the way it is. And I mean, it's a bad business. So what can I say? It's bad business everywhere. One thing I'll say about Kansas City, as little as I know about it, because I come back, but not so much to be part of them. I mean, I have people who are fans of mine there who are encouraging me all the time to come back there. Uh, and I probably should do it, but
Yeah.
I don't really know the local musicians particularly.
Yeah.
I'm friends with one of the great drummers there who played with me. If I can remember his name, he played with me on that event at the Black Lady or the Black Dolphin, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Dolphin, right?
Yeah.
Black
Black
Dolphin.
Dolphin. Yeah.
Uh, I'm sorry, I don't remember. Oh, Doug.
Uh, Doug.
He plays with
I know Doug Talley, the saxophonist.
not Doug Talley, Doug Auerwater.
Oh, yeah. Otwater. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, I could play with Doug, and I came back years ago. I came back and played a couple times at the Jazz Museum.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and what's the name of the club there in the Jazz Museum?
The Blue Room.
Yeah, the Blue Room. I played at the Blue Room a couple times, and I played with Tommy, the drummer who passed
Tommy
away.
Ruskin.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Tommy Ruskin, and I played with a couple great bass players there.
Yeah.
So I mean, I could come back. I probably should. I should
Yeah.
because Kansas City is my past, and my family still lives in Kansas. My brother lives in Lawrence, and my father's widow lives in Overland Park.
Okay. Yeah.
So
It'd be a perfect fit. Yeah.
yeah, I know.
So I'm going to put links to all of these to stream these digitally. And if anybody wants to reach out, and I'll put your website up as well for any of your previous work. John, it's great to catch up. Thank you so much for talking about the album. And hopefully we see you in Kansas City at some point. It would be great.
Joe, it's really great to see you in
Absolutely.
person.
Jazz fans, Joe Domino here, the host of the weekly Neon Jazz radio show and regular interview series being produced and distributed from Lee Summit, Missouri. We are very excited to let you know about the second annual Lee Summit Jazz Festival taking place again this summer on June 28th at the Bridge Space, located at 210 Southwest Market Street in downtown Lee Summit. Following the success of the 2024 festival, the lineup will include Lee Summit students, KC Area Youth Jazz, Paganova with Michael Pagan, Horoscope with Stan Kessler, Brad Gregory, Adam Larson, and the Lee Summit Jazz Orchestra. There will also be food trucks and vendors to round out a day of celebration. Early bird tickets are 2 for $30, and all details can be found at lsjazzfest.com. We can't wait to see you there.